Let's go live, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome 49ers legend linebacker Dan Bunz. How's it going, dude?
Hey, everything's great. It's a lovely day today.
It sure is, man. It's just a lovely day that a guy of your caliber has tackled all the obstacles, right?
Well, most of them that I've come against.
Yeah. So tell everybody who you are, man, and what got you into the NFL.
Well, I'm Dan Bunz. I played middle linebacker all my life from Pop Warner through high school, college, got into pros, and I was drafted in the first round, 1978, a dream come true for a hit kid from Roseville. I didn't know what to expect on draft day, but a lot of scouts were saying, man, you hit all the numbers. You're big, you're fast, you're strong. And so when I was drafted, not only in the first round, but by one of my favorite teams, the San Francisco 49ers, and my older brother, who was always a great athlete, lost his mind because he was a 49er fanatic, and all my buddies from college were around when the phone call came in, and all hell broke loose. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, hell broke loose. And it has to be a dream come true to play for your favorite team. I mean, you grew up a fan, so it had to be really interesting, right?
Yeah, no, it was great. And got to be, all my buddies got to be able to come see me play. And it was one of those things that couldn't have been a better fit. The only problem was the 49ers were losing a lot of games. And when I got there, I'd never been a part of losing that many games my first couple of years. So it was tough. And then you feel responsible because you're the middle linebacker. And there were some times I played in the first couple of years, and people say, oh, that guy played 40 snaps. He's tired. I play 110 snaps if you count special teams, because, defense was on the field most of the time because offense would go in. And one time I remember the coach says, sit down, Bunz, get some rest. And I said, why? They're going to do something, and we're going to have to go right back out. And they threw an interception. I said, see? And I had to run back out on the field. So I wouldn't sit down. I'd stand on the sideline because I go, I'm going to have to run right back out there. And defense, it was crazy. And when Walsh came in, him and I had words a few times. And I said, look, you haven't drafted anybody on defense. I said, honestly, if we stop them and they don't score, Ray Wershing will kick 2 or 3 field goals, win 9-0. It's not pretty, but we win. Defense wins games. Every team I've ever been on, you got to have a good defense. And next thing I know, the next draft, we get Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Keena Turner, Fred Dean. We get all these guys because I remember when the ball would go over my head during the game, I would look and I'd say, oh, no, there's a touchdown because, we had the DB of the week. We didn't have a lot of good guys back there at the time. So once we got a good defense, made my job easier. And then we started winning games.
That's how it all started from when you started building that culture. But what really got you into linebacker, you caught my attention on that story. You said you became a linebacker because of what you grew up through.
Yeah. Well, through adversity, and maybe I was a troubled kid. I had a very abusive fathers, stepdads, and my freshman year, I got punched in the face by my stepdad, got in a big fight, and I ended up kicking him and knocked a tooth out. And that was the last time I lived at home. And actually, a guy named Gonzalez took me in. It was our school coach, and he said, Dan, if you got nowhere to live, you come live with us. And so I moved in with Paul Gonzalez, and he was a coach at the school and a teacher, and he kind of took me into the wing and kind of kept me on the straight and narrow, and I worked my butt off. And next thing I know, I got schools calling me, and I wasn't even going to go to college. I said, I got to go to work and make some money. My brother says, hey, dude, you can come down here. They'll get you a job, and you'll get to play. And I could go to the school where my brother was. And it was a smaller school, and all these big schools were recruiting me. So I went to UC Riverside, and it turned out to be the best thing I ever did because I played on the freshman team 10 games, and I also played on the varsity illegally 11 games. So I played 20-something games my first year in college.
Interesting. So you went down to that college, and then you went to Long Beach State, which doesn't have a football program at this point.
Yeah, both schools, and we joke about it. I said, I went to Riverside, they dropped the program. I went to Long Beach, they dropped the program. I said, man, we really built an empire, but they don't have the program anymore. But it was good because I had to sit out a year. I redshirted, I worked out, I got bigger, I got stronger, I got all my classes squared away, and then I played my next 3 years there. And so I probably played, when I got drafted in the first round, I asked some of the scouts, they said, well, you played more football than anybody in America illegally, but it was a good thing because it helped me become a better linebacker.
Yeah, a lot of the playing in college, you played a lot of games, and you became the first round pick, and you were part of this Niners team where it was like not winning like you were saying. Yeah. But here's this one interesting story that caught my attention. I don't know if this is true, but you came into these events and you would say, don't talk trash about my Niners.
Well, yeah, no, we would go out and I'd have buddies, and my family would be out there, my brothers and stuff, and in the parking lot. Fans were pretty wild back then. It's the first time I ever got booed by my home team, but home fans. But we were really bad, and you'd go out in the parking lot, and everybody, oh, they can't win. You guys are the worst. And I said, dude, don't. And they start bad mouthing offensive line. Their defense was terrible, they were saying, and so next thing I know, I'm getting in a fist fight in the parking lot trying to defend my team. So you play 110 plays, and you come out, and some of the guys on the team back then were going, Bunz, are you crazy? You play 100 and something plays, and you go out in the parking lot and have to fight? I said, well, it's pretty treacherous out there. You don't want to go to the parking lot.
I mean, you had to play 100-plus snaps during that time. In today's NFL, I don't think there's not many players that play that many snaps like you would back then. But, man, 100 snaps and then going to defend a team in the parking lot, man, that's just cool.
Well, hey, when you love your guys and you love football, and it's just like it's a fraternity. It's your group. It's your family. It'd be like go to the park and your family, and some guy's calling you family names. You'd be like, dude, you can't do that.
But it just had to be like a great dream come true. But the fact that it all started from the purpose, whatever happened then got you to be where you're at. And then a coach, like you said, Gonzalez got you along the way, and he molded you to be who you are today, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he great man. I mean, who takes in a guy that, I had been in a little bit of trouble, but not bad. But he knew I was a great guy. He coached me in basketball and football, and he goes, dude, I know how it is to be like this. And yeah, you come stay with us. We get you a room. He moved both his kids into one room. He said, you got this room. And put a weight room in the garage because he knew I loved to lift weights, and he liked to lift weights. And so my buddies would come over, and we'd work out there because at the school, the weight room wasn't very good at the time because it was new. And it's one of those things that he just said, hey, just don't do anything crazy. And if you have any problems anytime you're out, call me. I'll come pick you up. And let's just try to get you through all this and get you graduated. And then there was a lot of schools. I believe he went to Oregon, but he said, you pick whatever school you want. And I wanted to go down where my brother was, even though everybody was going, that's a small school. You got Oregon, you got all these big schools. And I said, nah, I'm going to go down to Riverside because I like the coaches. And they were good coaches. The only problem was, they had you go to study hall all the time until you had a B average. If you had a B better than a B average, you didn't have to go to study hall. So it was great. They pushed me. I got a degree in social psychology and a minor in health science and in PE. And that's what helped me later to get a job as a teacher. And I taught for 30-something plus years in the Sacramento area, either at Hiram Johnson High School. I was at Sierra College, Sac State, and then I had a junior high for 24 years. And I felt like I was doing something worthwhile helping kids because I had a few people help me. So I was just passing it on.
Oh, yeah, that's good, man. That's like your after football career, you did that. But here's an interesting question. Which team did you hate facing the most?
Oh, well, the Raiders were always tough, and they had the big linemen and Van Egan and Art Shell and Gene Upshaw. They were tough. And then the other one that was really hard was the Steelers. Pittsburgh. And we didn't see them a lot all the time, but yet when they were on our schedule, because I grew up looking Jack Lambert and all those guys, and then you're playing against and they were tough, and it was good. And another thing was Larry Zonka. I had two buddies that were running backs, and one said he was Jim Kick growing up, and the other one said Larry Zonka. So we're playing New York, and all of a sudden there's Larry Zonka at New York, and I'm going, oh no, he's huge, 260, and he's the fullback, and they're down by the goal line. And this was a play, and we're lining up, and I'm going, you know what? I know my buddies back home are watching this game. I'm thinking in my head, if I don't stop this guy, I'm gonna get so much crap when I get back home, from your buddies. They're gonna, oh, he ran you over, and sure enough, I hit him right there and stopped him at the goal line. And I mean, I pinched a nerve on my neck, and my shoulders killing me. But there was like 2 plays in a row, bam, bam, and I was like, oh, dude, that guy's a load. I mean, he was 260, but I said, yes, I stopped him. And then when I got home, you know how your homies or guys are, they're like, hey, dude, I saw you cracked him. And I was like, well, I knew you guys were watching, so I couldn't let you down.
Yeah, that had to be some memorable moment where you said, I knocked out Larry Zonko on the play, man. Like,
yeah, nailed him.
Big deal.
Yeah. So it was good that him, Earl Campbell, I got to face a lot of the great running backs. Earl Campbell, that he came out my year, he was a load. And then there was one other play that I held dear, and he's not a big guy, but great running back, Walter Payton. And this was before he became really the big sweetness. He was, early in his career, and everybody knew he was good. But I watched a lot of film of running backs. I'm saying, this guy is one of the best. And I tackled him on an inside trap at the goal line and made him fumble. And it shows him. And I had the picture. I found it black and white. I wish I had it right here, where I'm hitting him and the ball's going the other direction. And in the paper that, you're reading the newspaper after the game, and they said, Walter, you never fumble. What's the deal? He goes, I hadn't been hit that hard in a long time. And I said, yes, because that was one of my goals, Larry Zonka and then Walter Payton. I'm just going, this guy is awesome. And then he became the superstar of all times. But at least there's a number of times he juked me. Don't get me wrong.
He's sweetness for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, those guys, that's how they make their living, and you all get a shot. But I got this one crack on the inside trap, and I just loved it.
Did you ever get a crack towards Marcus Allen or not?
Yeah, I ran into Marcus Allen a couple times, and he was really good too. And he kind of he had this upright thing, but the other guy was Dickerson. Dickerson was shifty, man. Here today, gone tomorrow, man. Like lightning.
Yeah, man. Like those were good backs during that time. Dickerson was breaking the NFL records during that time. Yeah. I still think he has the record to this day. Like, what is it, 2,100 and
yeah. I mean, those guys are good, and when you get a couple hits on them, good, you're like, whoa, because there's sometimes they'll leave you, like stymied, like where'd he go?
Oh, here's an interesting question. I don't know if you've ever run in with Bill Romanowski, but this is a question I don't even know about. But any memorable run-ins with Bill Romanowski?
No, I'm trying to remember one, but off the top of my head, no. I mean, we kind of got in a little bit of arguments on the field, and every once in a while, I know some offensive lineman from Chicago. I got in a couple little, where they're holding you and you're trying to get away, and you kind of throw a right hook on them. Or there was a tight end from Atlanta what held you every play that you had to punch him underneath just to get him to get off of you. I mean, it's almost like fist fight, and you try to get away, and then usually they catch the second guy. The guy's holding you, and then you swing at him, and then it's penalty. So you got to be really quick, and the minute the guy holds you, try to get your hands in or get him off of you. And it's almost like a wrestling match sometimes when you're in the line and they're blocking.
Yeah, there's some stuff like that during your guys' time. There was just a lot of that physicality, but it wasn't to call on penalties during that time where you can hit the quarterback and all that stuff was legal. But
Yeah, the quarterback gets paid all this money, and I've never understood this. And well, because if they lose the quarterbacks, then the scoring, they like the scoring. But to me, it's like, really, you get paid so much money, you never get hit in practice, and you get in the game, and then you still can't hit them.
It's like practice. Like, remember how practice, you
Yeah.
can't touch the quarterback in practice and all that stuff?
Yeah, I ran into Joe one time in practice accidentally, and Bill Walsh about lost his mind. I thought I was going to get thrown off the team. They go, dude, your days are numbered. But I was left over. I felt good because I was one of the guys on defense that stayed there longer than anybody else. Because Bill, when he came in, they were getting rid of anybody that wasn't his guys, and that's talking to some scouts and guys that been in the NFL and buddies I played with that became scouts and coaches. They're like, dude, new guy comes in, they clean house. They want their people. Whether he says sometimes they get rid of so many guys that are really quality players, but they're not their kind of guys. I remember Bill Walsh one time came in and there was a guy on our team that was cursing, and he was just an ornery, tough, really good guy, defensive lineman. And he goes, I cut so-and-so because of his guttural mouth. He was a good player. And I'm thinking, so you can't put up with a guttural mouth, a guy that cusses? I mean, everybody cusses out here.
They do.
Yeah. But it was just a reason to get rid of guys that weren't their draft picks.
Yeah, like usually those new coaching staffs or the ones who come as new coaches, they want to bring their own people. Doesn't matter how long you've been with the team. If you don't fit their plans, you're out of here. Yeah. So was it surprising that he decided to keep you around?
Well, I don't know. I stayed longer than anybody thought because Bill and I had words a few times, and I went into his office, and I actually was cursing and yelling and defending my case for playing. And everybody in the building heard me, and they say, nobody goes in there and does that. But it's one of those things I felt if you had a problem, you go straight to the source. And he was the head coach, GM. I thought, okay, if they're making these changes, I better state my case now before it just get glazed over and shifted off to the side. But that wasn't a good. After I did it, I said that really wasn't very smart.
But maybe he might have just took a message out of it, like, well, this is a guy I probably want to keep around at this point.
Yeah, I used some good vernaculars. I was cursing up a storm. Everybody in the building said, nobody goes in there. The coaches don't even go in his office. And you go in and say, blankety blank, blank. I said, well, I was a little excited.
Wow. So you went into Bill Walsh's office and you cursed him out and told him straight up, like, man, what were you trying to explain to him?
Yeah. I was trying to say, hey, put me up against this guy. I mean, I can outlift him, outrun him, out-jump him, out-tackle him. Are you kidding me? And you're bringing this guy in and you're playing him? But, that wasn't a good move.
Yeah, you're trying to be the smart ass.
Yeah, and then I got moved to outside linebacker, and he says he used to always say I wasn't fast enough, and I said, well, you got to be faster to be outside. So what am I doing out here? And then we went to another Super Bowl. So the first Super Bowl I played inside, and the second Super Bowl I played outside linebacker. So I don't know. And then I went to Detroit, and that was not a good fit at all. I wrecked a couple cars in the snow and got in a couple bar fights, and I said, and it was the coldest place ever in the world to play. And it was almost like the first couple of years with the Niners. We were losing so many games, and my wife was upset. She had our second daughter and said, so you're going to go off for 7 months, live in Detroit, lose, come back, not hardly have any money because they didn't pay much money back then. By the time I paid taxes, insurance, rented the house and the car, I'd come back with about 20 grand. And she says, and you're going to leave me here living on a piece of property in a trailer for 7 months. And I said, yeah, I guess that's not going to work.
I mean, you just kept continue on your career, whether it was Detroit or not. But what was your best moment?
My best moment would be Super Bowl 16, the goal line stand, being in the Super Bowl, and they were down there and they had driven down there and they were gaining momentum and they were fired up. And if you watch the film closely, I get to get in on actually the 2 series by the goal line. I'm in on every hit, either hitting the lead blocker or making a tackle. I mean, it's my brother like, dude, you were on every play there. And it was like a series where you're in a zone, and, you know, when you're pitching or you're playing a sport and you get locked in this zone, that I knew I'd watched so much film. I knew everything they were doing, and I was giving it all I got. And we were smashing into them. And luckily I had guys around me like Ronnie Lott, and they were all, especially those last 2 hits on the goal line, it was everybody conversion. But like Ronnie said, you were the tip of the spear. And even my brother said, you're the tip of the spear on about 8 plays. And just that, when we stopped them, and if you look at the film, NFL films, you can see Forrest Gregg and those guys, they just kind of gave a big sigh like, oh, and it took the air out of them. It was like and he even said it later. He said, we never all year not got, you know, a yard or, you know, a touchdown when you're 6 inches away from the goal line. And we stuffed them as a defense. And it was a testimony to that group of guys were so tight. And everybody had a part. Choma, who was an offensive lineman, played some defense. He got a hand in it. And if you watch the film, everybody is just like mad, crazed dogs, just diving in and smashing into them. And it was a team effort. And that was the kind of team we had. We came from the worst to be the best. And we were a tight group. That first Super Bowl team, I think, one of the tightest.
Yeah. And that's one of the plays that doesn't get much mentioned as much, but if anybody's seen the Niners episode of The Faithful, they had this thing called The Stop, and you were on this episode, and you were like the one guy that everybody talks about as that lost treasure in the NFL, where you became the hero of the play. Besides the catch, you had the stop.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of guys that say, you know, man, what's it like to have a play named? I mean, actually, the catch, you know, and that's Dwight. And Dwight was a great guy, and he's one of those colorful guys that just brings charisma to, you know, him and Joe were always joking around. So it eased, you know, if there was tension in a huddle or something, and just having fun. And we're young guys, and we're having fun, and we're going out and playing a game we love. And so you have the catch, and then people say, dude, you're the stop. I have people tell me, yeah, you're the stop guy. They don't know my name sometimes. They go, the stop guy. I said, oh, okay. And I love it.
I mean, it has to be one of the coolest names to come with the title. Like, anytime you associate yourself with the Niners, they think of the name The Stop. That's just like, shouldn't that be like a little statue or something around the Niners stadium? Like where you make that goal line tackle? I think they need to put that as a first Super Bowl win, right? Because you made that play.
Yeah, because they don't get in, and well, the tackle out there, but the whole series down there, they should have a video plus that tackle. People and people say, how did you do that? That guy was huge, and he was coming, and he caught the ball on such an angle that it helped me. But also, I played so much rugby all through college. My freshman year, I went out and started playing rugby, and I said, so what's the object of the game? Well, you outscore them. You knock the crap out of them on the field. Then you have to have a party. You outdrink them, outsing dirtier songs, and then you steal their women. I'm like, what is this game? This is crazy. Because rugby is a different kind of game. You run the whole time, run and tackle. And so I played all through college. I played even when I was in the pros, and Bill Walsh got mad, said, I heard you were down at Santa Barbara playing rugby. I said, yeah. I said, it keeps me in shape, and all you do is run and tackle. I mean, what better game for a linebacker than running and tackling? And so that was where, when I hit that guy, I kind of get lifted up, because in rugby, you got to pick him up and put him on the ground. You just can't hit him and knock him down because you don't really have gear. And so I think rugby made me a better tackler in the NFL.
Interesting, because during that time, I mean, you did 2 sports, so rugby was another physical sport, but people don't realize it's kind of very related to football a little bit, because the way they play, I know it's like a different national sport, but it's very physical contact also with they don't put no pads on.
Yeah, you're lucky if you get a little leather helmet so your ears don't get cauliflower ear. But yeah, I started playing that back at 73 when I first went down to Riverside, and then I also played at Long Beach State. And plus, then you have a lot of guys like Aussies and Australians and English guys that come to over here to go to school, and they play, and they're awesome because they played all their life and they know the game very well. And they used to always take my, I say, young Don, come here, let me show you, mate. And it was always fun. And then they had all these kind of off-color songs you sing, and it was a kick in the butt. And you're drinking beer.
So which one was more physical in your opinion, rugby or football? If you just straight up.
Well, football, because back in our day when you had to run through people and actually hit them, you could use your head, your shoulder, whatever, and you could hit quarterbacks pretty much. But football, more smash mouth. But rugby overall, because you don't have any gear, you get done and you're beat up. Your shoulders ache. You're nailed everywhere. At least you have shoulder pads and pads on. But football, man, you get some hits that are back in our day was hellacious.
Ooh, yeah, it's different then. A lot different then.
Yeah.
But like since we picked which team you hated playing against, which team did you love playing against?
Well, I love playing against the teams in our division all the time, but the Rams, because I had some buddies that were Ram fans, and I liked the Raiders, even though it was hard to play against them. But I used to go play basketball. We had this basketball tour thing that raised money for things, and a lot of times it was us and the Raiders would play together, and I got to be kind of buddies with them, but yet they were always hard and tough and ornery, and some guys would say dirty, but hey, it's only a penalty if the referee calls it. So let's get out there and see what they call and see what you can get away with.
So it has to be within your division. So the Rams were pretty much that one team that you enjoyed playing against, right?
Yeah, the Rams drove me crazy. Everybody was out, the Rams, get this. The other one, I forgot about this, was Dallas Cowboys, because when we played them in the playoffs, and they were a little – I love playing against them the most because they always seem so arrogant. And I have some buddies that played for them, so they're probably going to be mad. But I'm like, are you kidding me? America's team. And I still remember the first – in the playoff when Dwight and them, America's team could stay home and watch us play or something.
I think it had one of those Super Bowl stories where it had the 81 Niners and it showed.
Yeah.
I think it was Dwight Clark that said that about. Yeah, I seen that story.
You could stay home and watch us on TV or something. But that was good because they came in and the same thing. It was like, oh, we're the Dallas Cowboys. And they had a tradition and they had a thing, but they were so cocky. And to me, it's you can be good and you can knock the crap out of people. But then again, have the humbleness of a true warrior. A true warrior knows what he can do. He doesn't have to tell anybody. You know what I mean? It's just a thing that, okay, I knocked the crap out of you. Thank you. And walk away.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like, because a lot of the guys that I've seen from the past, like I guess they say Too Tall Jones was another guy. And then they had Hollywood Henderson, I believe, was one of those cocky
guys. He was a character. He came to our team for a while. And that guy, he had a few issues, but man, he was something. He had a lot of talent. The guy was smooth and quick and can move. I mean, when you're a player, you look at some guys and they just have something about him. You're going, how can this guy go out party all night and then come out and play like this? This was crazy, I said. And sometimes guys have all the talent and they don't have their head screwed on right. But we gave him a shot, and he had some talent. He just didn't use it to his full potential sometimes.
I mean, there's some talent for sure with a lot of these players, but back in those days, you guys had a lot of players from like the Raider players. They would always party and then come out differently. And then you had I think you had the Steelers and Cowboys and all those guys too. But But like, there's a player, I don't know, like Fred Dean, when you guys acquired, like when you guys got him, what was it like to have him as a teammate when he first came in?
Fred, Fred was the funniest guy, and I remember one time I come in the weight room and I was a weightlifting machine. I mean, I could bench over 400, and a lot of guys were like, "Dude, are you kidding me?" And I said, "Yeah." So I would work out, and I'd always get there early in the morning, try to get most of my workout done instead of doing the weights afterwards. Because after practice, you're tired. Sometimes you're like, "Really, I want to lift weights now. I'd rather go drink a beer." But Fred would be in there, and Fred's sitting on the incline bench. He has a lot of weight on him. Fred was strong, but he didn't lift. I don't know how he got so strong because he just had natural strength, and he had those big long arms. So Fred's in there, and Fred smoked all the time. They'd always say, "Fred, you can't have a cigarette," and he'd be, "Yeah, coach." And he'd light up another cigarette a little bit later. But Fred's in there with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He's on the incline press, and he's doing it, and he's throwing up a lot of weight. And so he does, and I help him, get it up. And I say, "Okay, Fred, do another set." And he's like, "Okay." And then he stops, and I go, "Fred, is that all you're going to do?" He said, then Fred talked funny. He goes, "Say, Bunzy." I said, "What, Fred? You can't be done." He said, "No, Fred done. Fred ain't doing no more. With Fred tired." And I said, "Okay, Fred." And he said, "But you're going to finish?" He said, "Bunzy, you lift enough weights for the both of us. I'm out of here." And he walks off with a cigarette in his mouth. I was going, how is he so good? And Fred would come out, and he would sometimes wouldn't even make it out to practice half the time, but he'd show up on game day, and he was like a rocket, and he was just possessed, and he would pass rush like nobody. I mean, even though he didn't work out and didn't do a lot of things, I said, just let him be, because Fred's Fred, and Fred can get it done.
I mean, I've heard like a lot of different stories from what I've seen from Ronnie Lott talking about how he got into a situation with him and never messed with him. He said, "I ain't messing with that dude."
Yeah, Fred, you never know where he's coming from, but Fred was a great teammate. And like I said, he was just down to earth, and you'd see him sometimes. And I saw him one time in a bar, and it looked like he was in the corner, and he was just dressed like kind of like a bum almost. And I said, "Fred, what are you doing?" He says, "No, nobody knows who I am. I sit in here like I'm some old drunk." I said, "What?" And he's smoking a cigarette. I said, "Fred, come on, man." And anyway, Fred is one of those guys that brought a lot of different color to the team, with how he was and how he joked around and messed with people. And that's what you need on a team, especially when you're working so hard, working and working. You need an outlet where guys give each other a bad time. Guys tie up all their clothes and run it up a flagpole, and the guy's looking for his clothes. He's standing around in his underwear, and they go, "You got to go outside and get it off the flagpole." I mean, just crazy things like that. And that builds the camaraderie and the team chemistry, kind of, because you work so hard. I mean, it's a tough game, and you got to study hard, and you got to get after it, and then that comic relief kind of brings guys together.
Oh yeah, it does. With the way he played, I mean, I guess like you said, he didn't have to do too much of the lifting as much. Like he just came in and play, did whatever.
Natural strength. He was fast. I mean, I was surprised. I raced him. I thought I should be able to beat this defensive line, but he wasn't a big guy. So I was like, damn, he can run, and he could do everything. But Fred was Fred. He would be laying in the training room, smoking a cigarette with his feet up on some towels, and I go out to practice, and he said, "Bunzy, come back here." I said, "What?" He said, "Go tell Coach Mack Fred has a headache. He ain't coming out right now."
Like an excuse?
I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, tell Coach Mack, but I don't know if I'm coming out to practice." And then I'd say, "You're kidding me, Fred." And he says, No, tell him this. Tell him old Fred will be out for pass rush, and I want Bubba." So sure enough, we'd be warming up and exercise and run some drills and warmed up, get going. And here comes Fred jogging out. 20 minutes later, it's pass rush. He said, "Bubba, I want to go against Bubba." They said, "What?" "I'm gonna make Bubba better." and they would. And Fred was so quick, man. It was crazy. And McPherson, Coach McPherson, great guy. And I'd say, "Yeah." Fred said he'd be out, and he'd get all mad. "Gosh dang it," and he'd cuss a few things. And I go, hey, that guy going to make you a great coach because he's so good. He had the talent, and I don't know how he had the talent because he seemed to be really lazy.
I mean, it just depends on natural ability. But what was it like to play with Cedric Carbon? Did you play with him?
Oh yeah, big Ced. Ced and I actually said he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. He said, "Hey, rookie, you gonna come with me tonight?" Because I was a single guy. I know you don't got nobody cooking for you. He says, my auntie's here. She gonna make you some soul food, brother.
That's like this.
I said, what? Yeah, you're gonna come over my house. So I went over, said we were hanging out. He said, I like you, Bunzy. You a little bit crazy. And so he sat down and said, hey, Auntie, my friend here. So black eyed peas, cornbread, all this stuff. And he's like, you're gonna love this. So I ate this meal, we hung out, BS, and I'm feeling like, because my brother talked about Cedric Hardman and these guys, they're like legends, and I'm like, well, I'm hanging out with a legend. And Cedric was crazy. He had these broken up, gnarly fingers that are all smashed up, and he could pass rush like nobody's business. And so I go and have a great game. Lead, kick a bunch of tackles, and I think I got the game ball that game, and Cedric comes over and said, hey, boy, because he always had this gruff voice. He said, hey, boy, now just because you had such a great game after eating my soul food from my auntie, don't think you come over my house every night and be eating dinner. I said, no, Ced, I don't think I'm coming over to have dinner. And he was just a great guy, and another one of those guys that just was gruff and different and had a different attitude, and some people didn't know how to take him. But it was great being part of all this, and even on my teams in college, we had some wild and crazy guys. So it was like, this is just heaven. I'm part of the 49ers, and these guys are taking me in, and they thought I was a little bit wild.
I mean, it had to be that interesting to play for that legend. I mean, if you see in the back of my wall, you see that he did sign my autograph a long time ago. Like Cedric Carbon, 2002 was a long time ago. But yeah, rest in peace to him. He was like, I think he was one of the top lists of the Niners with the sack record.
Yeah. Man, well, he was part of the goal rush. And do you remember ever shaking hands with him and how crooked his fingers were?
Oh yeah, and then he signed me the jacket. So he signed me like an old jacket when I was in middle school, and he was just he was at a Safeway, he had he was
an autograph session. Yeah.
He's like, hey kid, want me to sign your jacket, kid? And he's like, all right. And then he just gave me like his autograph picture right there. And I've looked at his history, and I appreciate the old school football more than today's NFL. Man, guys like him with broken fingers.
Oh yeah.
Did a lot of stuff, and I just thought since you did play with him, I would think he had some good stories, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Well, back in those days, you get a hip pointer. I remember coming off the field, hitting the hip, can't hardly walk. They shoot it up. I come limping through the tunnel. I'm running. But later that night, it hurt really bad. But broken ribs, let's just shoot them up, put a flak jacket on, you go out and play. I mean, they didn't put you in a tent and then say, well, he's out. I mean, they would ask you, do you think you play? Yeah, I can play. I mean, it was almost like your teammates, if you didn't go out and play, it was almost like you don't want to help us. Or are you kidding me? You just have a broken rib and you don't want to play, or a hip pointer or a hyperextended elbow. I mean, nobody came out. And maybe we weren't smart, but it was almost like we're going to war and you want to know you can count on your guys.
Yeah, definitely. You want to depend on your guys, but in today's NFL, who do you still think is the greatest quarterback of all time? I mean, this is a question that everybody's been throwing out, and I would say it's pretty obvious to go with Montana. Tough era.
Well, Joe, he would tell jokes in the huddle. Him and Dwight, they were characters, same thing. Brought so much color and charisma to the game, and just improvise. And hey, if we can't do it this way, let's try it this way. And we went through some tough times where he didn't have a whole lot of O-line at first, and He could do it with his feet. He could throw, and he was just, they didn't call him Joe Cool because he was stressing out. You could see when guys come in the huddle, even on defense, if you look in the guy's eyes and they're scared, I mean, even on defense, you're like, oh man, they're running up. You can't be there. You got to be like, come on, we're gonna, and on Joe's side, it's got to be calm, like, hey man, come on. John Candy's in the stands and tells a joke or something, and it's like, okay, we're in the middle of this game, and he's joking around like it's play. It's like you're playing out at the park, with your buddies. And if you can come in with that feel but still be focused, then it's like, okay, he ain't afraid of nothing. He's just chilling. And so I think Joe, I have to say that because he was on my team. I like him. Young, I played young. I got to play with Plunkett. Get to hang with him a little bit. Then DeBerg, then Joe, then Young. And so I got to see them all. And I think Joe just had a lot of charisma and had a lot of just football swagger.
Oh, yeah. Like his personality, like that's what people said about him. Like he's a chill dude, but he's kind of like a serious kind of person. But what was it like to play with Jim Plunkett before he even went to the Raiders?
Well, it was great. I went over to Jim's house one day. I got invited. I don't know why, because I was a rookie and I was a little bit wild, and they were like, dude. And that was just before they were heading over, and he got released. And a couple of the veterans said, hey, dude, this and that. And that's, tough. But it turned out to be the best thing for him, to get a shot, because sometimes it was really new to me because I was new to the team. And it was like, wow, this is kind of a cold-blooded business, here today, gone tomorrow. And it is tough. And the world's tough. I mean, and people don't get it. They think, oh, the world owes me a living. No, you got to go out and get it. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get up, not only in football, but in life. And sometimes nowadays it's like, oh, you can't do it. That's why I got to teach it. Kid pushed me and told me to shut the F up. And I was like, I grabbed him by the arm and, hey, and then I'm in trouble because I yelled at the kid. I raised my voice. Oh, that was terrible. I raised my voice at a kid. Back in my day, you would have got, you got lit up by your parents or by the teacher.
Different time, but
and nowadays we're not doing we're not educating our kids on respect for teachers and parents and the police. It's the whole world, and so that was one of the reasons I got out of education. You can't teach, you can't educate, and you can't discipline at all.
Yeah, it's a different era during that time. But like the reason why I was asking about Jim Plunkett because there's some family connections towards my family who knows him personally, and they went to.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
Yeah, my uncle went to school with him like a long time ago, and my family. I don't know if there's any relations to him and family wise, but he's always been mentioned around the family. Because I have families down San Jose.
When he got released, I thought, man, he's still a great quarterback. And sure enough, they, picked him up. And it's just that same thing. It's not our guy. We're going with somebody else. But then you can't argue with bringing Joe and them in. But they brought in DeBerg, and DeBerg, he was okay. But Joe was, and DeBerg felt the pressure because that was Bill's pick. But it panned out to be good. So I got to be around a lot of quarterbacks and kind of see the nasty side of the business early on with how, coaching changes and people like nobody's safe. If you're not their pick, then your days are numbered. I went into Bill's office, and that's because I said, you're getting rid of everybody. Why don't you cut me free right now so I could get on with the team early rather than later? But then they kept me, and thank God they did, or they might not win that first Super Bowl.
Yeah, you got to give credit where it's due for yourself. You made an outstanding hero play that still stands in today's Niners history. I mean, I would think they should make a statue or something kind of like how they did with Dwight Clark. Make a play where you made the tackle or something. I would think that that would be the proper way to have your legacy there, is in the museum where you made that
I
tackle.
would love that. I commit you as the committee man.
I mean, but speaking of what we were saying earlier, like the kicker, wasn't that his nickname Hacksaw or what?
Oh, the linebacker, Jack Reynolds.
Oh, Jack Reynolds. Oh, I guess the nickname. I guess your kicker Ray Warch was called nickname Hacksaw. I don't know.
No, Hacksaw was Jack Reynolds, and God, what was Ray's nickname? God dang it! I used to line up right next to him on the kick. I was L1, go down and bust the wedge. That was one of my jobs. It was like, okay. And Ray goes, oh, Bunzo, I like having you here, because Ray wouldn't look, he'd be, he had all these superstitions. And Ray Wershing, great guy, great teammate. But, even looking down sometimes, on the field goals and stuff and extra points and, not looking up. And when I was blocking, I was always the wing, and he goes, yeah, I feel really safe with you there. I don't even have to worry about anybody coming in, because you have to double bump when you're the outside wing. You catch the inside guy, and then you got to sometimes dive out to get the guy coming off the corner. In practice, we'd have guys trying to get by, and he says, Bunzo, they don't even get close. You're the man. I don't even worry about my leg side, so you're okay. So.
Okay, so that was just the linebacker name. I guess he must have mistaken the kicker's nickname or something. But
no, the linebacker was Jack Reynolds, and he came and he got that name because Jack was a little mental. I mean, he used to put all kinds. As a matter of fact, Jack and I almost got in a couple little arguments because he stored stuff in his locker like it was some kind of storage bin for car parts and uniform. And so it started spilling into my locker. So I got mad when Dad threw his stuff out, and he started giving me flack, and I slammed him into his locker. But he didn't want to mess with me. But he got the name Hacksaw because he is, and you got to be a little bit off to play this game. He got mad, and he sawed a car in half, an old junk car. And so that's how he got the name Hacksaw Reynolds. He sat out there for I don't know how many days and hacksaw a car in half.
Damn, so that had to be the nickname. But he started off with the Rams, and then he came to you guys at the end of his career. But I mean,
yeah, Jack was fine. I liked playing next to Jack. He wasn't the biggest guy. He wasn't big on stature. He wasn't the most. Couldn't lift a ton of weight, but he, was okay. But he would never make a mental mistake. And in football, mental mistakes kill you more than the physical ones. And sometimes because of his size and stuff, he might get blocked, but Jack would never make a mental mistake. And it would drive you crazy if you ended up playing next to a guy that didn't know the call. Because if you don't understand the responsibility and the integrity of the defense, it's compromised. And if you're at least at the right spot and maybe not the physically tough or whatever, it still works. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it still works because of the way he played. He didn't make too many mistakes. He was
he was crazy. He would throw his body anywhere. I mean, he would even spin around and let him run into his back. He would do whatever it took to plug a hole. And it was great having him as a teammate. And I called the signals originally, if there was a problem, he could help out. A couple times I got dinged, and it all worked together.
I mean, I guess you guys had a really good, crazy relationship on the field, so that had something good impact on the team. Oh, here's an interesting question. It's probably outside of football question, but I guess he's asking, what's your favorite beer?
Favorite beer? Oh, is beer. Well, honestly, I like a good. My father-in-law was English, and he used to pour me Black and Tans, and Black and Tans was the military back in the day. Black and Tan uniforms they had, but it was a Guinness mixed with a lager or an ale. But yeah, I like a good port, old style dark beer. But I also like IPAs. and we got a lot of brew pubs out here in the foothills of the Sierras. And I go to a lot of these places, and they brew their own. And my son-in-law, we brew beer together, and we made some really good beer. So I don't know. I like lagers, I like IPAs, but sometimes just to sit down with a nice black and tan or just a plain port type dark beer, it's nothing better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A little coffee and chocolate.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of Dwight Clark, did you visit his ranch before?
Dwight Clark? No, never got to go up there. Oh, we did once. Back Eddie had us all fly up when he first bought, and kind of the whole thing. Just once, but it was brief and in and out and doing a lot of other things. Yeah, so I got to go up there once.
Okay, so it had to be a nice experience before he passed
away.
Oh
yeah, it was. All the guys were up there and that, and it's beautiful. I got some relatives just moved back up to Montana. I have 14 acres out here in the foothills. We grow lavender. We have horses. We got chickens. Like I said, we're kind of Okies, but love it out here. I'm a country guy.
Oh, you gotta have it. I mean, even when you were younger, you had the look of a younger cowboy with blonde hair and all that. I mean, so what do you think of turf fields? Do you think that they should have no future in the NFL at this point because
of turf fields are financially, I think, cheaper to maintain than grass. And the problem with grass is if it does get muddy or it doesn't have good drainage, that's a problem. But I would rather play on grass anytime. Turf, some people running backs and other people like it because you can cut and grip. But there's so many knee injuries and problems with it. I mean, I've been running where I just tripped myself, stubbed my foot on the turf because it grabs so quick that you're like, whoa. And
higher risk of injuries. That's what happens with turf fields.
And then you get those burns, which you don't get on grass, and then they get infected. I've had that where I've had, you rub and then you're sweating and you're out in the dirt and you're every day. And then if you don't always disinfect it really good, then all of a sudden you'll have some like infections and stuff. And it's like, man, wow, where are all those AstroTurf burns? And I'm saying, well, plus there's stuff in the turf that I don't think is good for your skin. So I don't know. I'm a grass guy all the way.
Yeah, natural grass field. I can understand the difference because when you play on the turf field, it's just the difference of how they had the material. It's just you can get your cleats stuck in too, which is
Well, the other thing is when we first got Candlestick had those fields and they had concerts, so you got these big trucks and things compacting the mat that's underneath the turf. And then, so they called it Candlestone. And there was a couple times where I got thrown down or the pitcher mount. They used to put a plate with carpet on it. And I got my bell rung numerous times because I got hit. And when you get nailed down, you hit the ground and it's harder than the tackle. It's like, oh my God, what this is like cement. And then I used to have to get my arches shot up because I had somewhat flat feet, and playing on the field, it was so hard that my arches started to drop. And I talk about pain. So I not only had to get shots in it, I had to get it taped up to hold my arch up because it was like playing on a cement field with just throw down a rug.
Oh man, it had to be a lot difference. But so after football, you decide to do like teaching education. So what was that transition from on the football field to teaching?
Well, when I first got out, I was running my sports bar. I had one of the first sports bars in America, really. I was the first guy to come out with the concept. I did a bar and I said, we're going to do all sports, all TVs. I mean, I saw one, there were very many out at the time. And so I did all TVs, and then on weekends, rock and roll music, and we ran that. And then I had a partner run it. He ran it into the ground. And about partners, they very seldom turned out to be honest, it seems like. And so that I got back, and actually I was a bartender and was trying to save my restaurant. And then I got out of that, sold the building, sold the business, And while I was doing all that, at the same time, I was going to night school because my brother said, "Man, you're so good with kids." I said, "I wasn't even that great of a student. I was a little bit lazy. And, I don't know. I didn't even like teachers when I was in school." Well, he talked me into becoming a teacher. So I went back and I got a high school credential, junior college credential. So I taught at the junior college part-time. And he says, "No, finish your high school credential." So I went back and got the high school credential, and I had a history degree, and in college they were saying, why are you taking social psychology? And I said, "Do you want to be a psychologist?" I said, "Well, no, I want to know, with my strange upbringing, why I'm so crazy." So wild. So I took social psychology so I could analyze myself. And so I got a social psychology degree, a health science degree, and I ended up getting a PE credential. And then I went back and got a junior college credential. And then after that, I had to go back, and I said, "I can't believe I'm going to this much school." I went back again and got a high school credential because they wanted me to coach at the high school level. So I coached at Hiram Johnson, kind of inner city school, downtown Sacramento, and coached there for a while. But then my daughters started playing basketball, and they offered me the head job, which I kind of wanted. And then my wife says, "Honey, your kids need more time with you. You're gone coaching all these other kids and taking care of all these other kids, and you're not really spending more time with the kids." And so I thought, you know what? I wanted to have kids. My first job is to my daughters. And so I started following them in basketball. And the guy goes, "You're offered the head job." I said, "I know I told you I wanted it, but I'm going to pass." And I retired from coaching, got out of that, and then just got my junior college. After junior college, I got that high school and junior high credential, and then they offered me at the best junior high in Sacramento. And I thought, wow, I went and saw the school, and I Sutter Junior High in downtown Sac, and I went there, and the rest was 20 something plus years, 30, almost 30 years teaching junior high. And then when education changed, that's when I said, it's time for me to get out. There's no respect for teachers and discipline. And my deal is always discipline.
Yeah, discipline, all that stuff. But hey, it was a tough transition. And then you put your time for your kids first. But did you eventually become a head coach at that point or no?
Never got it. I missed it. It was right there. And I sat there, and my wife looked at me, and she was like, "Honey," and I was kind of going, "You know what? You being a dad, it's all about the family, and that's what you said." And I said, "Yeah, you're right, babe." So I said, it was kind of my dream. It was kind of like when I retired. I was in Detroit. They offered me a contract, and you come back home. And my wife said, "Okay, you're going to be off. I got 2 babies here. So you're going to leave me here on the property with 2 babies. And I'm going to be working. You're going to go to Detroit, be gone for 7 months. And so are you going to be a father, or are you going to be a football player?" And that was tough because I wanted to play football. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to come home. I'll be a dad." And so I came back home, and I was bartending and trying to get a job as a teacher and a coach. And next thing I know, it was good. It was good reason, because I've had buddies that played 10, 12 years, and they have 14 different surgeries. And I have a few surgeries, but yet I think there's a point where you're beat up enough, and maybe by stopping earlier and not playing another 2-3 years, maybe I'm in better shape and healthier. And, I don't have the 14 surgeries. I got 2 or 3, and that's about it. So, and my body aches enough when I get up in the morning now.
I mean, a lot of the hits, yeah, at some point your body aches and all that stuff. So it's like, but I guess you just did what was your purpose. But when you look back in time, do you feel like this was the best decision you ever made in your career in general? Or do you feel like, hey, I should have did something different then?
Well, I think in education, and now that I'm retired, sometimes you don't feel worthwhile because you're not out impacting students. And I've had people come to the ranch, because like I said, I taught for 30 plus years together, if you count Sierra College, Sac State, Hiram Johnson, and everything. And this lady, really nice looking lady, I was like, whoa. And they're at the lavender farm because we grow lavender, and they cutting and picking. She goes, do you remember me? And I said, I'm sorry, I'm blank. I'm so-and-so. When I heard the name, I go, oh, you were. And she goes, yeah, you're the one that they weren't letting girls play a lot, do weights lifting in the weight room. And you said, my daughters lift weights. I want girls could sign up for this class too, but the rule was it was only for guys. And so I made that change. And she goes, from there, I became really strong, and I became a great volleyball player. And I went to college, and I did this and that, and was an All-American. I was like, oh my God. She goes, I think you changed things for me because I got stronger and better. And so when you get things like that, or kids that said, yeah, you got on me, and now I'm a teacher also, or I'm doing this for kids, and it makes you feel good that you helped. And that's what Paul Gonzalez, the coach, took me in, and he helped me to do better. And so now I'm helping other kids to do better, and it kind of makes you feel like you're viable, like you're doing something worthwhile. And now that I'm retired, every once in a while, I'm like, man, maybe I should go back and substitute once in a while. I know you got enough work here. You got grandkids. You got this. Just relax,
I mean, living that life, man. I mean,
yeah.
You can tell a lot of those stories to your grandkids, and they'd be like, man, I guess my grandpa was something.
Yeah, it's passing it on. It's passing it on and helping them, one with discipline, respect, and you're not going to talk that way. Don't talk to your grandma that way. It's just, I don't know. And if more people took it serious about have these kids growing up, and you got to be an impact, not only the parents, but the grandparents it should be a family thing. And I know everybody doesn't live near their kids or the grandkids, but that's my thing is, how can I make this person a better person? And you got to do it by example.
Better example is the best way to go. And plus the way you come from, I mean, dude, this was a different time. And I guess the time you retired, it was just understandable because the discipline's way different. Like this generation, they like to take full control of everything. Now we don't have no way of proper respect to them no more. It's like they can get away with stuff these days.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you put things on them that I don't know, my grandkids right now, we're always discipline and respect for the parents and the elders, not only your parents, but anybody, and say thank you, be polite, and that's the most I think grandparents and family members can do for their family is teach respect for other people, treat people how you want to be treated. That's what I've always done, no matter who you are. I mean, you see an old bum who's down on his luck, treat them with respect. Oh, don't start making fun of them. Just, hey, he's a person. He's somebody. And until they show they don't deserve respect and they act crazy, then you can say, I don't need you.
I mean, you just got to be kind with them and show the proper way.
Yeah.
I mean, the era I came from, during that time, discipline was necessary, but now it's just at a certain extent, like, you just can't do it no more. Like, because a lot of stuff where you can't do the spanking, the other stuff, because nowadays it gets reported as a child abuse, and there's just no other way to explain it. It's just hard.
No, that's how it is. At the end of my career, one person, when I grabbed the kid after he pushed me, he looked at it and said, you take your arms off me, I'm going to sue your ass. I'm like, what? But he already attacked me. And then the principal was good. He said, once you pushed him, he had to defend himself. So he had to grab you because you were being violent. And actually the kid had been in 2 fights. So then they were like, okay, yeah, this kid is a little bit crazy. So because to me, when he did push me, I kind of laughed because I said, okay, it's kind of funny that you're 5'7" and I'm 6'4" and you're trying to attack me.
I don't think he knows who you are, man. I mean, if you were to go back in time, watch the videos, man, I think he would think twice about messing with you.
Well, I had some kids in junior high said, dude, don't mess with him. I said, what do you mean? They did. They showed him the video. They said, he rocked that guy. Check him out. He's in on all these hits. He said, he don't play.
I mean, in your mind, you still do.
Yeah. So I got some respect from actually some of the hard kids that were in my classes that were like, dude, And so when they saw that, they instead of just being a teacher, they said, dude, you were, kind of, it gave you, I was put up higher on the level that they were like, okay, hey, all right.
I mean, dude, it has to be that great for them to even appreciate what you've done. I mean, even like in some ways, man, you've impacted a lot of these kids. You've impacted professional football. You got to live your dream, man. It has to be like a rare story, like you come from growing up as a fan of a team, you get drafted by a team that you wanted to play for.
Yeah.
Then you go on and do some great stuff, man. So that has to be awesome.
No, I enjoy it. And like I said, you're Gonzalez. If it wasn't for Paul Gonzalez, I don't know. Maybe I would have went down a different path. And so I give credit. And I mean, also my older brother, he threatened my life. He says, bro, you need to buckle down and do stuff. Don't give this your best shot. This is your way out. And I'm like, whoa. And so between the two and, other coaches, basketball coach used to get on me, and this guy and the track coach. And so if it wasn't for teachers and for other people stepping in and not going, oh, he's the lost cause, just try to always impact somebody and lead them in the right direction, could have been a different story for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think your brother being the influence was the reason why you got to be where you're at. Like, you told me something about how your brother wanted you to do better, right?
Yeah, well, I told him at one point, he says, sorry, I said, you were president of the high school. You were almost straight A student, honor roll. You played every sport. You were all everything. And so I come in and they're like, oh, why aren't you like your brother? I said, if I get a C, I'm happy. If I get an A on a test, I might screw around for a while. So I just did what I had to do. And then like my senior year, that's when I did get all A's and B's. And my brother said, what'd you do? I said, I worked my butt off. And he goes, well, why did you do that the whole time through school? I said, I don't know. I just didn't really.
The motivation.
And it was, he apologized. He goes, I'm sorry that I was so good at everything. And he had jobs and he worked at the post office. He was like the golden child. And I was like, well, they want to check your brother because I'm not my brother. And you got in a couple fights. Well, I don't care. So, it's always living up to something. And he feels bad. He's like, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I put so much pressure on you. I said, well, you did. And then my other brother was a biker. He was like, chopped motorcycles and made them into Harley, and easy rider, and was wild and crazy and did all the things that the hell's. I mean, actually, one time I came home, I was living with him for a while. There's like 60 motorcycles in front, and all these guys came out with HAs on it. I was like, whoa, this is crazy, and I'm just a kid. I was like, wow, what's going on here? I was actually scared to go in because there were some shady looking guys coming out of that house.
Oh, no, like the motorcycle gangs. Yeah, I heard those.
Yes, it was just like the movies. You see the movie and it was like,
oh, man.
And I'm living at his house. I'm like, whoa, dude.
Biker gangs, man. They're no jokes.
And so, but I got to come in contact with so many different aspects of life. My brother worked at the post office, did this. The other one was the Hells Angel biker guy. Paul Gonzalez was the coach and thing. And his parents had the Mexican restaurant in town, Carmelitas in Roseville. I used to go there and eat all the time. I love Mexican food. And I used to go in there and they would make me whatever I want. Danielle, what do you want? Chili relleno and some carnitas. And I got whatever I wanted. And so I was fortunate in that case because I could go there anytime and they love me and I would help do stuff there. And so I had all kinds of aspects of my life that you mold them all into one thing and it just helps you get to the next level.
Oh, here's a really good question before we get to this one. Have you ever been to the Niners, been able to give current team a speech?
Me? Go talk to the team?
Yeah.
No, I never have done that.
I mean, it's kind of, hey, you can't go wrong with Mexican food, man. It's just, anybody who don't like Mexican food, they got a problem with it, man. Like,
oh, I know. Hey, my wife knows it. She goes like, really, twice a week we got, And I got a place that I go to in Lincoln that they make good chili rellenos fresh, and I like those, and I like carnitas, and fish tacos. There's another place that makes really good fish tacos and crab tacos and shrimp tacos. And God, I mean, Mexican food it's a staple of my life.
Hey, like carne asada, all the other
Yeah.
stuff we put into, we put in the burritos, I like the breakfast burritos mostly, like the way my mom makes it.
Oh, yeah.
Usually homemade's better before I even.
Yeah, homemade's great because I grew up. Well, the first fight I got in first grade was with Rick. I mean, I lost that fight pretty much, kind of, but that was the last fight I ever lost. But Richard Martinez. So Richard Martinez, him and I were best buddies, and so we grew up together. And his mom and dad, come and have a Mexican breakfast. Oh, Dan, you sleep with Mexicans, you eat with Mexicans, you eat this. You are Mexican. So I was honorary Mexican. I'm pretty pale, but it was great. So Richard and I, we've been buddies since, the fight in first grade. And then we hung together. And then later he's like, dude, you got too big, because all of a sudden I grew. He's like, and he was a running back in Pop Warner on my team and in high school. And it was great. So I had a lot of friends that were Hispanic, and ate a lot of Mexican food growing up, and it's still in me today. Roseville, I guess I'm an honorary Hispanic. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás?
I mean, it has to be that great to even just say that you enjoy the culture of the food and all that stuff.
Oh.
But yeah, you can't go wrong. We can go all day with Mexican food, but let me ask you one more question before we end this. Like, okay, so you look back at this play, okay, like Dre Greenlaw, maybe a few years back, he made this tackle on Seattle. Did you ever look back at it thinking that this was exactly kind of similar to what you did, or not?
Well, yeah, I was right down there, and it was like, oh man, and for him, it's the same thing. You got to make the stop, but it's all about timing, power, and the game. And this was for the Super Bowl, and it was like, my deal was like, this is it. I'm going to give it everything I got. And those backs were huge and tough, and it just happened. And so when you see that on thing, and then for them to make the correlation, to even remember it, because like I said, Bill Walsh and I were always at odds. I mean, because I had words with him several times, and a couple guys said, I don't think Bill likes you at all. I said, oh, well, but at least I can still play. So.
Yeah, it's not about being liked. It's about getting respect, realistically.
Yeah.
But
that's everything in life.
Yeah, but that play by Dre Greenlaw, they were showing like a flashback play of you making that tackle in the Super Bowl with that play right there. But that Greenlaw play where it won a division, that was kind of like an interesting tackle.
Yeah. And if it would have been in the Super Bowl, they would have really freaked out.
Yeah. But hey, you got to at least – I mean, if you watched the entire last play during that Super Bowl play, you were everywhere on the field. So
yeah, it was one of those things where, you watch so much film and you get down to it, and maybe things haven't been going great, but yet it was like I knew everything that was going to happen. It seemed like I was at the point of impact, whether it was the lead blocker or the play in the flat with the back, or it's one of those things where you're just at one with the game. And I don't, it's kind of like you're not even thinking. It just happens. And you're in a zone, and not too many times you get in a zone for 4, 5, 6 plays in a row that are like bam, 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 bam. And then the final thing is they don't get in, and nobody believes it. Nobody their team didn't believe it. Even our coaches were still like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. I know we got good guys, but it was a great goal line stand. I mean, they call it the best in NFL, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most underrated plays in NFL history. And I think besides the catch, it was another play, but during the era, the Niners defense was was one of those defense that didn't get much talked about. All they talked about was the offense with Montana and the rest, but nobody talked about much of your guys' defense during your time.
Well, Bill was an offensive guy, and if you're the head coach and GM, you don't put stuff out about the defense, even though because your job is the offense. So if you're going to promote something, what are you going to promote? Put it that way. It's just human nature. I'm running an offense. I mean, I used to get mad because I went in, and one of the reasons I argued with Bill is I said, you know what? Offense gets all the time. Defense, we get shit. And I was pissed. And I said, special teams sometimes gets more time than we do. Well, he says, yeah, on that day we do more special. I said, no, most of the time we're either at the same or they get more. I said, I've never been on a team. You win with defense. If they don't score, you just got to kick a field goal. Come on. Are you kidding me? And so we had this big conversation, and I was pissed off because, if a play messed up on offense, you'd rerun it and rerun it and rerun it till it was perfect. On defense, all right, move on. And I was like, I've never had coaches like that. I always had defensive-minded coaches, and defense was key. And I was like, that's why I got mad. And maybe it helped because actually the year when I yelled one time before we drafted Ronnie Lotner, right? That's when we drafted all those guys and got actually a defensive guy because I said, you haven't drafted anybody higher in the 8th round on defense. And I was pissed about that because it's supposed to be a team. And it was. Offense got everything. And if there was any accolades, offense got it. And we were just an afterthought. But we had great guys. I mean, look at the guys we had on deep. Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Keenan Turner, Fred Dean, Big Hands Johnson, Louis Kelcher, Pete Kugler. I mean, guys that didn't get the respect that they should have got, I believe, was our
Ricky Ellison was another guy that was like a really under the radar player, and he was another great guest I had too. He talked about how this defense was underrated in his opinion. Didn't get talked.
Oh yeah, no, we didn't get no pub.
I mean, it was a different time. Like when you guys, like, okay, besides the first Super Bowl, was it like pretty fun to just go into against the Dolphins and just beat a top team like Marino, like that?
Oh yeah, no, that's all they talked about was Dan Marino, and we had a great defensive plan, but we played the extra spy and 5-6 DBs, because they're throwing the ball, and it changed kind of the complexion. It kind of bothered me because that meant a lot of times I wouldn't be in as much, but I got in, when it was short yardage and all that. But with playing at all the defensive backs because they had so many great receivers, it was a kind of a different game. It's like I didn't feel like I really did a lot in that game. But when you got in, you had whatever you had to do to your best of your ability.
I mean, in that game alone, you guys just beat the brakes out of the Dolphins, and it had to do with the defense stepping up too. So,
well, the pass rush with those guys, and then we used Fred as kind of Fred Dean. Not only would he be down, he would get up and move, and he'd get up and be a linebacker, and then rush from there. And so we changed the defense a number of ways that was similar to our defense, but then this thing with Fred. Because Fred could come from anywhere, and they had to account for him. They had to at least have 2 guys to count for him, and that helped. And then Big Hands and Johnson and Louis Kelcher that got huge hands. So they were like, wow, we had a lot of that team had more talent than I think the first team, Super Bowl, but yeah, we had a lot of the same guys in the mix. But we had so many other guys coming in that came from different teams that just added to the impact of our defense and offense. So it was great.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it had to add some feel to that fact that you guys were facing the top Miami offense. I mean, that team was like top of the NFL boards, and everybody was talking about Marino. It had to motivate you guys for that, right?
Oh, yeah. Dan Marino was at one of the games, and I wanted to go down, but then I thought better because I was wearing the ring that he wanted. And I thought, because I got them both on. One's kind of small, I don't know, right there.
Oh, nice. Let me see those rings. Yeah, you got one of them and the other one?
Where the heck? I'm going opposite. I go this way, come up.
Yeah. Hey, you got that one right there. Okay, so you got your 2 rings. One's smaller and the other one's bigger. That's cool.
Yeah. It just doesn't fit. But, Yeah, and to be a hit kid from Roseville and have 2 Super Bowl rings, sometimes people just freak out, and I never thought I'd have diamonds like that.
I mean, it's still something that you can talk about to this day, and not many athletes can say this. Like, "Hey, I won the Super Bowl. I have rings. You know, I
Yeah.
made the play that defines my legacy." But yeah,
Yeah, if you wanna have a committee and go down and say, "You have the catch, and that got us there, but what won the game?" And I think, goal line stand with Dan Bunz might be a nice bronze statue out there, the stop, and that is huge.
I mean, oh, here was one of these commercials back in the day. They had Joe and Dan Coke commercial. Was that kind of like the weirdest commercial where they had a
Joe and Dan's Coke commercial.
yeah? Wasn't it you know? Here's another thing that I heard about because I heard that you guys were on a music video with Huey or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Huey Lewis in the news. He's a big 49er fan, and yeah,
Rick
that
Yellow's
was exciting. That's like being in a different world, the music industry.
it had to be fun to be on the video, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was just it. It was amazing, and it's just one of those things you don't think you're ever going to be part of. As a kid, you think Super Bowl. Yeah, okay. You dream about it, but then when you get there, it's kind of like it was almost like when I came out the tunnel, I felt like I could fly. I mean, I was so amped, so high on just the energy of here I am, hit kid from Roseville, Dan Bunz in the Super Bowl, and I'm stepping onto the field. It was just, the national anthem. I was like, oh, I was about losing my mind.
Living the dream. But did you play any other movies? Like, I don't know if this is true. North Dallas 40 or something? Or
Yeah, no. A buddy of mine, Russ Bollinger, the guy that was my roommate in college, and he played for Detroit and the Rams, and he had a 30-something year career scouting, coaching. And he says, he's the one that said, Bunzo, the reason we were good because we were a little mental. We were a little bit off. To be in this game, you got to be a little off. But anyway, he was always wanting to be a movie star guy, and he read for all these parts. So, okay, go ahead, Russ. And you go down to LA, go down. A couple times I drove with him. And he got a part in this movie, and he says, hey, they're shooting a film at Long Beach City College. It's going to be called North Dallas 40. And they might need some guys. So I go down there and I talk to this guy, and he says, no, we don't need anybody, but I'm sitting in the stands and I have really long hair, and it was a hot evening, and I took my shirt off, and I was pretty buff back in those days, lifting a lot. And the director saw me and he goes, who's that guy? And so they bring me down, and because, I was looked in really good shape, and he goes, what's your name? I said, Dan Bunz. I said, I play for the 49ers, da-da-da. And my buddy Russ, and he goes, oh. And the guy started doing all this panning like this on my face and stuff. And I was going, what the heck? And he goes, you want to be in a movie? And I said, well, I thought you have enough guys. And he said, no, I like your look. So they made me a linebacker in the movie, and I knocked Nick Nolte out, and I curse him out. F you, you faggot. And
hey, I gotta check that movie out. But is that it's comedy, right? Because I've seen.
Yeah, it's funny, and it has a lot to do with how the NFL was a little bit. It's kind of a crazy thing about how they put people against people, and you're in and out quick and fast. But I knocked my earbud out. Sorry,
that's all right.
I can still hear you, and. So I show up, and my buddy, who's been doing cast calls for the last couple of years, he goes, Bunzo, you show up, you kind of look hungover, you take your shirt off, the director likes you, and I think he just likes you. And I go, what was he? And I said, what are you saying? I said, I think he likes you. And I said, well, that's all right. And he says, so I've done all these casting calls, paid all this money, and you show up and you get a part. So I had a part in the movie. I got a script. He was so mad. He goes to the thing, and when we doing the movie, they brought me in, and Russ had one little line where he was yelling, but it didn't come out very clear. So not only do I get a part and I get a thing, and I get a trailer. Anyway, so the night they give me my trailer, I walk in, and Russ tries to come into my little trailer, and I'm like, "Excuse me, Russ, this is for the stars." So he's all mad. What are you telling me? So I was just messing with him. He finally came in. But then there's one part that he had, it didn't come through clear. So I went back and they had me do some dub overs. So the dub over was what he yelled, "Hey, you son of a whatever," And so I did it. And so he goes to the movie and he goes, "Look, I got this one part where I'm yelling." And then he goes, "Oh my God." So he's in Detroit because it came out when football was on. And he goes, "I can't believe it. Not only you get all these parts, then you steal my line. Your voice is coming out of my mouth." So it was kind of funny because I had to yell it with a rough voice. So then he was so mad. He wanted to kill me. But Russ and I were like brothers, and we still keep in contact today a lot. And I think he hasn't retired yet, but he's been in NFL for 30 years, 35 years. It's crazy. Either scouting, coaching, or doing something.
Yeah, it's a long time. But hey, man, thanks for your time. I know we've been going on for a while, man. But maybe down the road, I'll probably get you and Mike Schumann to do a little.
Yeah, get us together, and maybe I could try to show these things. I got to go the wrong way.
Yeah, you get. Yeah, I see both those rings. Matter of fact, yeah, those are
Golden Gate Bridge right there. Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, but thank you for your time. I know we've been going towards that limit, bro. A lot of fans appreciate the stories, man, especially that movie. I just had to do my research, and I saw you played that movie, so that was like
North Dallas 40 is an old one, but it's kind of funny. Nick Nolte, Mac Davis. It's a good. It's funny.
Yeah, it was that one guy from the Raiders who was on that movie too, right?
Matuzak, John.
Yeah,
that guy was the biggest man. Craziest guy. I mean, we got a few words one time, and they said, "Dude, you don't want to mess with that guy. He's crazy. He might try to bite your eyes or something out." But
there was just a lot of there was a lot of crazy actors. I mean, a lot of crazy football players. You had Lyle Alzado, who was a little sadistic, and then you had
yeah. Well, that it was funny. Here's a quick deal. They do the show, and they had a party scene, so they're doing the party scene, and they bring beer in to make it look real. Well, the guys drink all the beer really fast. Pretty soon, everybody's so drunk they can't shoot the movie, so they do a wrap. So the next day, they bring out just empty bottles, and they go, "I never seen guys drink like 10 cases of beer in 40 minutes."
Damn, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was crazy. The guy, the director, and I said, "Yeah, you don't want to be feeding these guys drinks and trying to do some work."
They're like party animals, I'm assuming. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. But hey, thank you for your time. For all the fans, bro, everybody appreciates the legend.
Go Niners,
man. And Dan Bunz, and having a good time, man.